Welcome to Latino Communicators. I'm Jackie Arceo, first-year broadcast journalism student at Cal State Fullerton.
Hello, I'm Eliza Armas, a broadcast journalism student at Cal State Fullerton. Today we have our guest, Gustavo Arellano, a nationally recognized journalist and author. Gustavo is the editor of the OC Weekly, which is an alternative newspaper in Orange County. He's the author of Orange County, A Personal History, Taco USA, How Mexican Food Conquered America, and Ask a Mexican, a nationally syndicated column in which he answers any and all questions about Latinos.
Gustavo is a lecturer with the Chicana and Chicano Studies Department here at Cal State Fullerton and has received several awards for his column, such as the 2007 President's Award from the Los Angeles Press Club and the Impacto Award from the National Hispanic Media Coalition. Gustavo is a lifelong resident of Orange County and is the proud son of two Mexican immigrants. Let's welcome Gustavo Arellano.
Gracias for having me.
Thank you.
When you were a student at Orange Coast College, you were a film major.
Mm-hmm.
So what...
How did I become...
How did you become interested in journalism?
I started as a journalist at Chapman University. So after Orange Coast College, I transferred over to Chapman and I started majoring in film studies. But one day I picked up a copy of the OC Weekly in the trash can because I like going through trash cans to pick up magazines. I just like to read. So I started reading it and it turned out to be an April Fool's issue. So every single story was fake. And one article in particular was really funny. It was called 5 Latinos You Really Like. And it was a satirical article. Not a single person there was Latino, except for the Taco Bell Chihuahua dog, and everyone else was just nasty, nasty racist. So I decided to write a letter complaining about it, but being fake angry. And the editor liked the story liked my letter so much that he said, you should become a writer for us. And I told him, well, no, I'm a film student. I don't know anything about journalism. All I do is read the sports section, and that's about it.
Did he have to convince you in any way to get into start working for the paper?
In a way, because he sent me that letter saying I want you to be a writer, and then I told him no, but I was working with a lot of activist groups at the time, so I said, I don't want to be a reporter, but I could tell you stories you guys should be doing, because now that I read your paper, it seems there's no Mexicans in Orange County and no Vietnamese or no Muslim. That like all of Orange County is Huntington Beach and Irvine and Costa Mesa, which is not. You should try these other stories. And I guess they liked the stories that I was pitching them, not for me to write, but for the writers to write, because they started doing more and more of those stories. So I kind of liked that this newspaper was paying attention to what I had to say. But I think I started pitching them so many ideas that they finally got tired and said, you know what, you should do one story for us. And then after I did that story, and then they paid me my check, $100, and I was looking at it, wow, you could make money off of writing dribble? I want to do that. And then after that, it was like preaching to the converted. I became the biggest acolyte a reporter could ever be for journalism, and especially for the OC Weekly.
But when you started off, weren't you a food editor?
No. I started off the very first, and actually, if you really want to go really, really back, so I started feeding stories to the OC Weekly. That was most of 2000. Yeah, most of 2000. And then I did that one story. But then in 2001, just randomly, I like this idea of being able to tell newspapers what stories they should do. So I connected with, of all places, the Jewish Journal of Los Angeles. Am I Jewish? No. Do I know stories about Jews? Yes. So I started writing stories for the Jewish Journal, and then then I kind of swung back and started doing stories for the OC Weekly. And the very first stories that I did for the Weekly was Rock en Español. Did I know anything about Rock en Español back then? No, but I pretended to, and then I ended up becoming a longtime writer of it. Then slowly I started transitioning into food.
Oh, all right. So then when William Swim approached you and suggested you write you have readers ask questions about Mexicans, how did you initially respond? Did you know it was going to turn into the Ask a Mexican column?
My entire life has been about opportunities coming to me and me saying no. And then me getting smarter, not being a dummy, and then doing it, and then taking off with it. So for Ask a Mexican, it's a big gap between that angry letter to the editor, which was April 2000, to Ask a Mexican, which is November 2004. Actually, this year is the 10-year anniversary of Ask a Mexican.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So
Congrats.
Thank you. In that time, I ended up becoming an investigative reporter. And I started doing a lot of stories about Mexican and Latino issues and immigration issue, especially the issue of illegal immigration. It's such a contentious topic here in Orange County. And you ladies know, as a reporter, you want to when you have a beat, you want to be as interested in the beat as possible. You can't do the same story again and again. So on the issue of immigration, I did a little bit of this. I was one of the first people to interview Jim Gilchrist of the Minuteman Project, the anti-immigrant project that was notorious for a couple of years. I did stories about my family. My dad first came into this country with the trunk of a Chevy in 1968. I did a little bit of everything. So finally, Will came to me and said, we should do a column mocking the ignorance that people have about Mexicans in Orange County, and we should call it Ask a Mexican. And the only reason I told them that I didn't want to do it was not because I thought it was going to be offensive, but because I thought that no one would care. As reporters, you want people to care about your stories. You don't want to publish something or broadcast something and no one give a damn. But he kept insisting, and the one thing that worked in his favor was that we had to fill in a news hole that week. That no longer happens, and it's impossible actually for us to have space in newspapers. So I had to do something. I had to fill in the hole. So I said, okay, fine, we'll just do this Ask a Mexican. And he said, it's just a joke column. We'll do it one time, and that's that.
What was your initial reaction to how many people sent in questions and how big it got?
I still can't believe that it has been going on for a decade now. When we first did it, again, I thought, let's just make up one question, leave it at that, and then I know people think it's a joke, so if they don't get it's a joke, we'll put the logo, this stereotypical bandito. If people still don't get it's a joke, we'll call it Ask a Mexican with the upside down exclamation point, because what I've discovered in all my years of covering racists, nothing gets them angrier than an upside down exclamation point or question mark. They cannot get it, like they go nuts. So just to put that dagger in them that just more. And then if people still didn't get it, at the very bottom I put, hey, got a spicy question about Mexicans? Ask the Mexican at, and I put my email address. So I never expected anyone to call me on my bluff and start sending in questions. That said, once they started sending in questions, I went to Will and said, people are sending us questions. What the hell do we do with this? And he said, well, let's continue doing the column until there's no more questions to be answered. And here we are 10 years later talking about this.
Yep. Some of the questions, though, they do sound a little offensive, and you always reply pretty sarcastically. You don't ever get people telling you that you're perpetuating the stereotype because of the way you respond as well?
Absolutely. It's satire. Satire, I think, is one of the most powerful tools of comedy, because what you do is you play the fool in order to make a bigger point about something. So, who are the great satirists of the eras? Jonathan Swift, Mark Twain, Stephen Colbert, Jon Stewart. All of them in their own ways played a buffoon, played an idiot, but only because they were trying to expose the racism at the time. So similarly with Ask a Mexican, yeah, I will take some, they don't seem offensive. They are offensive, very offensive questions, and I'll play around with those stereotypes that they offer, but only so to get that leeway that allows me to be able to get back at them with stats, with facts, with a bunch of Spanish cuss words, and ultimately I am the victor on that. And, the dangerous thing with satire, though, it's a very fine line, and some people, they'll get the satire and they think it's brilliant and wonderful or whatever, and the other people will say exactly, like, does it perpetuate stereotypes? Or the one that the criticism that I always get is, how do you know that people don't use, or how can I put this? Don't you think that people will use your column to perpetuate racism and to perpetuate their own hate? And my response to that is that the next racist that uses my column to perpetuate their racism is the first one, because satire, intelligent minds can disagree. The one group that is united in their opinion of Ask a Mexican is racist, and they despise the column. I got the letters.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
It's a lot of fun.
So, how did it make you become an overall better writer? What was your thought process as you responded to the questions? I
don't think I'm a good writer. Intelligent minds can disagree on that one. But column writing is different from reporting. In reporting, you find your story and you tell it, and it can be as short as 200 words or as long as 5,000 words or even a book. A column, on the other hand, is very specific. I have, started out with 700. Now I'm down to like 550 words just because space, our paper gets smaller and smaller, but that you basically have two questions and you have to answer those questions in about 200 words, and you have to answer it, find all your facts and stats, and you have to be funny, and you have to be entertaining, and you have to do it again for the next question, and you have to do it again the following week, and you have to be successful at that for now a decade. It is very hard work. People always say, oh, I could be a columnist, I could take those questions. I tell them, go ahead, go have fun. They drop out after a month or so. They can't do it, they can't hang.
Do you specifically pick and choose the questions that you answer?
I actually think the hardest thing about the column is to keep people guessing. So, because if it was all about immigration, it would get very boring. It really would.
Yeah.
If it was all about like nasty, racist questions, it would get boring because you're reading, oh God, here's another illegal alien, savages, blah, blah, blah. No one wants that. So I have to pick and choose to see what's going to be the funniest thing. So one week it could be a question about history mixed in with a question about sex. Another week it could be a very funny question that's just dumb and silly mixed in with something about etymology, the study of words. Then it could be a letter regarding an answer that I gave mixed in with a really racist question. And that's where I think the column for me is most interesting, is having, like, you do not know what on earth someone's going to ask. Like, someone once asked recently, I don't think it was this week, it was a couple of weeks ago, why do Mexicans love to hand deliver invitations? Why can't they just send it in the mail? Why can't they use Evite? Why does my primo have to send me this big lace letter and go to my house and hand it to me? Why does it have to be a big spectacle? And then that was mixed with, I think, a question about history. I don't know, for me, I find it interesting to not know what's coming in that way, and the readers, I think, also like it as well.
Yeah, I used to always pick up the OC Weekly just to read how to ask a Mexican
You should
column.
pick it up every week still.
Yeah, I like love the column.
Thank you.
Yeah, but so how do you feel about it becoming such a great success? Like, was that part of the plan? Like, you really did not ever think?
The column was only supposed to come out once. It was only supposed to be a joke column. Then once people started caring about it, early on, we tried to get other papers interested in it, but no paper in their right mind would run it. So we always thought that the only paper with the cojones to run Ask a Mexican would be the OC Weekly and a neo-Nazi publication. No other publication would ever want it. That changed in 2006 when the Los Angeles Times did a story about me. And that really changed everything. If it wasn't for that LA Times piece, I would not have all the, the book, the play, the radio show, the possible television show, the possible movie, all based on Ask a Mexican. It would have just been a column for OC Weekly readers. It would have been a cult classic, let's put it that way. Now, I mean, I'm not going to say it's successful, but I will say that people read it. I call it notorious more than anything, because successful implies that it's great and it's awesome. Notorious implies that there's something sketchy about it, and there should always be something sketchy about my column.
Okay.
But overall, congratulations on that column.
Yeah, no,
Your
hey.
anniversary now.
Yeah, it's my column. I love it. People say, when am I going to end it? And I say, when I get bored of it, and I don't think I'll ever get bored of it, because even it now runs in about 39 newspapers across the country, and even if every single paper dropped it every single paper dropped it except the OC Weekly, then okay, fine, then I'll just turn it into a column about etymology, the study of words, because I'm a nerd. If I could just make it the nerdiest column imaginable, it's my column, so I could do whatever I want with it, and if no one else wants to read it, good for them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, moving on to your book, what influenced you when you were writing your book?
Which one of them all?
Oh, Orange County.
Okay. Orange County, Personal History came out in 2008. It was the second book after Ask a Mexican through Scribner, and I started doing that book because it's a two-parter. It's half history of Orange County, half memoir of how Orange County influenced the rest of the United States. I always wanted to do a history of Orange County just because I find Orange County so fascinating. I'm born and raised here, and I've been covering it my entire life. I've lived here my entire life, so I've seen all the different ways where Orange County has been very influential to the rest of the United States. And then on the other hand, though, in when I wrote the book, and that would have been in 2007, because it came out in 2008, that was a time where there was a lot of immigration rallies all across the United States, and there was a lot of people who really thought that Mexicans could never, whatever you want to call it, acculturate, assimilate, whatever. Mexicans becoming Americans, it happens. But a lot of people did not want to believe that. So I said, okay, I'm going to write a story or a book about my family's own story here in the United States. It's not anything new. The immigrant coming of age novel, I mean, that goes back to the turn of the century. It's a classic of American letters, but I figured now is a time for this story to be told again, and it's, my story is not an exception, it's the rule, and if there's any way I could broadcast my family's story to the rest of the country, then I'll do it. Why not?
What ideas and different ideas did you have in mind to put together that book and eventually publish it?
Well, like I said, I wanted to do history of Orange County, so I thought the best way to do it was this, to show the different ways where Orange County influenced the rest of the United States. So I broke that up into chapters: religion, politics, pop culture, racism, because we're very influential in racism, of course, in many different ways. So that's on one end. And then from my family story, is just tell the story of my family, going back to my great-grandpa and my grandpa who came here to Anaheim in the early 1900s to pick oranges, going to my parents, going to my generation, and then my cousins, like my little cousin's generation, and just telling that story. So going through all the embarrassing moments of my life, going through all the inspirational moments of my life, like the teacher that got me on the right path, because I was going to be one of those wayward youths going off, becoming a statistic or whatever, and then telling the story that we talked about the story of Ask a Mexican, the story of how I got into journalism.
So then when you wrote Taco USA, How Mexican Food Conquered America, what were you thinking then? Were you just thinking about food?
I just wanted to eat. I got hungry one day and I decided to go out around the country and eating it. No, what happened with that book, again, classic, I say no. My agent, we were having dinner in New York City where he's based, and then I was describing to him this amazing Haitian fried goat lunch that I had just had. And then he said, "You're very into food. Why don't you do a book about Mexican food?" And I said, "No, it's been done. Why should I do it?" And he's like, "No, I think you could really give an interesting spin to it." So I went back to my hotel room and I started looking if there was any books about Mexican food. And there's a lot of cookbooks. But an actual history of Mexican food in the United States had never been done before, at least in a full book. There's been essays here and there. As a reporter, I like to tell stories that have never been told. So it just so happened to be about Mexican food. If no one had ever done a history of Chinese food, I would have done it just because it's something that no one's done before. But hey, Mexican food, that meant that I would have to travel around the country for about 2 years and eat Mexican food everywhere. So it was great. It was the hardest job I ever did.
Are you going to be publishing any more books like in the near future?
I would like to, but right now I'm working on a project for, I'm consulting on a cartoon for Fox called Border Town. And
that's interesting.
It's going to be great. It's part of the Seth MacFarlane empire. So really brief synopsis. It deals with two families in a fictional town called Mexifornia, which is right on the U.S.-Mexico border. The Mexican family is the Gonzalez family. The head there is Ernesto Gonzalez, runs a successful landscaping company. He's an immigrant from Zacatecas, just like me. And then his neighbors, so they're successful. His neighbors, the Buckwalds, they're not successful. They're white trash, really. And the head of that family is Bud Buckwald, and he's the world's worst border patrol agent. So just all the fun. There's coyotes, there's stoner Mexicans, there's religious Mexicans. There's a little bit of everything. It's going to come out in March of 2015.
What drew your interest to work on that project? They
came to me, actually. The head of the show, Mark Henteman, he had read my book, Ask a Mexican, and he thought it was funny. So he asked me if I wanted to be a staff writer on the show, and guess what I said? No. But this is the reason why. And I told him, I said, because it's funny how life works. I started off as a film student, and then I totally dropped film to become a reporter, and then 13 years later, here I am on the cusp of Hollywood telling them no. But this is what I told them. I said, I think this is going to be a very important show. I have not written a screenplay. It was last year, so 13. So I hadn't written a screenplay in 13 years. I do not want you to waste a staff writing position, because those are very rare. I don't want you to waste it on me. I want you to use it on someone much better than me. And that person was Lalo Alcaraz, a very famous satirist, Chicano satirist, and he ended up getting that job. But what I did tell Mark was, that said, I want to be part of this show. If you could find me something that I could do, like even part-time, even just me like offering you advice, I would love to be part of the show, and I would be honored. And that's what happened. So it's been great. It's been my Hollywood dream has finally been reached. And Hollywood is an amazing, interesting place. I still want to be a reporter full-time, or I still want to be an editor. I never want to leave journalism, but anything I could do to help out in that show or for other shows, I'm more than happy to. And Border Town, I think, is going to be a hit. I really do. And it's something that I'm going to be, all of us involved with the show, we're going to be proud of.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, and then Border Town, so now you have the 2 books, the column, or 3 books.
Yeah,
Ask
a Mexican was made into a book as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. They turned it into a book. How do you feel like it's bridged the cultural divide in Santa Ana?
Well, Santa Ana is its own story. I'm never going to claim that I have influence, because I can't make that claim. I can't go to everyone and say, okay, fill out the survey. Have I influenced you or have I not influenced you? All you can do as a writer is put it out there, or as a reporter. Put out your report and see where it may lay. I mean, I've had people come to me and say, you've changed my mind about Mexicans this, or, you're an inspiration. I've been reading you forever and you make me very proud. And that's cool and all. It really does mean a lot to me, but I can't say that I've influenced stuff. On the issue of Santana, like, all I can do, again, is is called truth to power. And whether people want to accept it or not, well, I can't make them accept it, but I could just put out the truth, and they're gonna have to live their life against the truth if they're not living the truth.
What advice would you give to Latinos interested in landing a job in journalism?
You have to be able to work harder, longer, and better than anyone else. That's it. I mean, I know it's, every couple of years they say, oh, we need to hire more Latino reporters. Yeah, and then they do. And then, of course, Latino reporters are the first ones to get laid off. So you cannot, it's good to have the tool. It's good to be Latino. It's definitely good to be bilingual, but that can only get you so far. The only way that you could become successful is through hard work. You cannot rest. You have to be the type of reporter that you're up at 3 in the morning reading through a 7,000-page environmental impact report and not having a life, because that's going to get you ahead that much longer. Like myself, it's a little bit different now. I'm married, so I kind of have to have a life. But the reason why I'm where I'm at today was because I just lived my life. I lived my life as a reporter, and I have no regrets. I'm my own boss now. I'm doing all these things. I am living the dream that all journalists want to do. The pay is crap, but you don't get into journalism for the pay. You get into it to try to make a difference in your community. And I can't say I am making a difference, but I do know that the stories that I write have a singular point of view, and I'm happy of what I do.
I hope that you enjoyed our conversation with Gustavo Arellano. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Latino Communicators. I'm Eliza Armas.
And I'm Jackie Arceo. Until next time.
Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Proud sponsors of Latino Communicators, Southwest Airlines. You are now free to move about the country.